Hey guys, Jan here, codingwithjan.com. Today, special video, we're interviewing a founder of a certified Shopify Plus agency, and we cover tons of interesting stuff, like what it means to be a Shopify Plus partner, how you can become one, but also other interesting things, like what are the most common tasks that clients ask them about, or what kind of developers they hire in the agency. So yeah, valuable industry insights that are hard to find elsewhere. You can listen to this as sort of a podcast, or just skip to the questions that interest you the most, using the timestamps down below. And if you need more support, then check out the links in the description. Let's begin. All right, Nic. So you are the founder of Charle, a certified Shopify Plus agency.
That is correct. I am the founder of Charle, indeed.
Awesome. And I think you're fully remote now, but you also got offices in London and Manchester. Is that also correct?
Absolutely, yes. So lots of our team are based all over the UK. I'm actually at our HQ in London right now. Some of the team are here with me.
Looks
Right
amazing.
now, I'm hiding in our meeting room just around the corner. But yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, I think you've passed the minimum requirements to be on this channel. Really appreciate you taking the time today. And I'm super hyped for this. Got some difficult questions for you prepared. Are you ready to dive in?
Let's dive in.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, looking at my notes here, you just mentioned it, or we just mentioned it. You are a certified Shopify Plus agency right now. And yeah, one of my first questions would be, what types of clients are you even working with? Like, what's the majority? What do they look like?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good question. And I think it's a really diverse range of merchants that we work with. So we don't really specialize within one particular niche of merchants. So we're not going after all the fashion brands, or we're not going after one particular sector.
Hmm.
However, there is typically a size of business that works really well with us. A, because you normally have to be doing a certain amount of revenue to be able to afford agency fees. And definitely at a certain point of the growth of the business, whereby you're going to actually want to really invest hard into that on-site experience. So to answer your question, Jan, some of the merchants that we work with are people that are firmly within like fashion. We have a lot of food and drinks companies. Similarly, we work with B2B businesses as well. It's super diverse, which is amazing for us and the team, because it means that we get a really wide level of exposure to different types of businesses. You do really learn how different businesses work very, very differently, which has always been a big passion of mine, is to have really diverse kind of um, workflow. Keeps the brain engaged, keeps us learning new different types of businesses that we're going to be working with, and similarly different challenges that we're going to be facing in day-to-day design and development work too.
Okay, yeah, that is awesome. And is like every client of yours a Shopify Plus brand, or do you also work with like people slightly below that level, maybe, yeah, looking to level up their Shopify game?
Absolutely. So we probably work with around 60-40 to Shopify Plus merchants. So I'd say 60% of our merchant base are on Shopify Plus. However, that said, some merchants are using the standard Shopify plan or Shopify Advanced, and they're not too bothered about the new Shopify Plus features, but they're still doing really huge revenue amounts. In terms of kind of like the revenue that our merchant base is actually making.
Hmm.
On average, we see somewhere between 1 and 8 million pounds per year on average. That's within our merchant base. But we have merchants that are doing 20 to 30 million, and we have merchants that are doing less because they're new startups and growing their businesses.
Okay, that sounds amazing. And yeah, as you might know, the audience on this channel is quite diverse. Like we have beginners, intermediate people, also more advanced. But for someone completely new, could you maybe elaborate why Shopify Plus makes even sense to begin with? Because I mean, the plans start at 2,000 per month. Like, why would someone pay that?
Absolutely. It's a big step up, isn't it, from choosing that Shopify Advanced plan that's what, $299 a month to $2,000 a month, plus
Yes.
um, all of your additional card fees. And if your revenue amount becomes a certain amount, you start paying a percentage on that too. So it's a really good question. Now, firstly, I think that there is generally a size of business where Shopify Plus is really needed. And that's because you're going to get enhanced levels of support from the Shopify Plus team directly.
Mhm.
And also, it does become a point where it makes financial sense. So where you do get slightly lower processing card payment fees. And if you add all the numbers up, there is a revenue point where it actually is a little bit more cost effective, or if not the same, to move over to Shopify Plus. But
Okay, got it.
similarly,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So we have the break-even point in terms of revenue, and then we have also advanced features like more staff accounts, advanced support, and so on and so forth, right?
absolutely. So that's kind of like the second area that brands often will leverage Shopify Plus, is to be able to access some of the amazing features that Shopify Plus comes with. So number one that we see our brands always really wanting to dive into is being able to update the checkout with Shopify's UI extensions or Shopify functions that we're getting super deep into right now. We're getting absolutely loads of Shopify functions requests and new extension requests, which is super exciting. But also, you get up to 9 expansion stores. So if you've got your teams all over the world and you want to have different stores for different areas and territories, you can have up to 9 expansion stores.
Mhm.
And also, you get access to Shopify's B2B functionality as well out of the box, so that
True, yeah.
you can offer all of those lovely things like volume-based discounts, net payment terms, all these slightly more B2B type business offerings that are a little bit different to D2C selling online.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I think that was a good overview. And I want to dive a bit deeper on the Shopify Plus topic in general, because we mentioned it like 2 times now. You are a certified Shopify Plus agency, and you have not given that name to yourself, right? So what does that even mean to be like a Shopify Plus agency?
Definitely. So Shopify obviously values the partners that it works with. Um, we've got different tiers and levels effectively. So we have Shopify experts. Now there's a larger number of Shopify experts. And that what that means is, I am going to come onto Shopify Plus, don't worry, but Shopify experts means that you get listed on Shopify's website and people can contact you. Now, um, a slightly higher tier and the highest tier that you can partner up with Shopify on is a Shopify Plus accreditation. Now, the Shopify Plus Partner Program is only for merchants that are serving the highest level of enterprise clients, so people that are doing a much higher level of revenue,
Mhm.
but also have a much higher level of complex needs and requirements as a business scales.
Okay.
So Shopify want to ensure that they have a group of agencies that they know really well, they trust, has got a proven track record of being able to support some of their most complex merchants, so that they can refer their Shopify Plus merchants, those agencies, and they know that those agencies are not going to make loads of mistakes and upset them and make them not like the platform. Now, excuse me. Now, to become a Shopify Plus accredited agency is not an easy process, and it's not a short process. You really have to prove your worth in terms of have a really good track record of working with the big brands.
Mhm.
First of all, you need to evidence that you can support bigger brands from the off. Um, and have evidence of being able to have a really good team structure and process, so that your team's delivering a really good service to merchants. But also, you need to work hard to bring Shopify new merchants as well. It's really as a commercial relationship. So not only will Shopify refer you some merchants, but actually you have to really bring merchants to them as well and be a two-way commercial partnership. But it is really about having that skill level, having that experience, having the trust and reliability to really deliver for the some top tier merchants that sit within the Shopify Plus ecosystem.
Okay, yeah, these are awesome insights. I didn't even know like some of the things you mentioned. So really appreciate you sharing that. Um, have you ever seen a freelancer like become a Shopify Plus certified partner, or is that like because of the processes you mentioned almost impractical then?
I haven't seen it, to be honest. I mean, I've only got really a good experience with kind of the UK Plus partners. Maybe in other countries somebody's done it, but really, Shopify Plus program is about having a team that can service those really high level merchants, and it's going to be very difficult as a freelancer to be able to service a very large scale client, I think, because you're going to need
Yeah.
probably multiple developers, multiple designers, project managers to oversee the workflow, technical strategists, and so on. So it's going to be a pretty hard shout, I think, to do it on your own. I wouldn't want to do it all on my own, that's for sure.
Okay, got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that. And I also thought it was really interesting you said that it's like a two-way commercial relationship. So not only will Shopify refer you merchants, but you also actively have to like bring your own. So that is
Absolutely.
something, yeah, something to be aware of, I think.
Yeah, it's a great, like any good business partnership, it has to financially benefit all parties involved.
Yeah.
Um, and the being a plus merchant, sorry, a plus agency is no different.
Okay, yeah, super interesting. And looking at my notes here, like the next topic I would like to dive in is actually client acquisition. And you okay, now we briefly went over it. So there is a scenario where like brands would approach Shopify and they might refer you as a reliable partner. But you're also seeking or finding clients on your own. Would you be open to share the strategy that works for you? Like, do you go on events? Do you run ads? Do you put out content? I mean, we're on an interview right now, but beyond that, like, what's your strategy?
Definitely. And I always think that, like any business, you should always have a really diverse approach to finding new customers. Never really rely on one particular channel, as it's a bit of a risk. So, lots of people find us on LinkedIn, for example. So we're super active, always posting really valuable content online, but also connecting with brands and key people within those brands. So the e-commerce managers to make sure they know you and they can see you. So being really proactive with that, things like cold email is not the funnest of approaches, but absolutely a necessary evil over lots of businesses. Things like SEO, paid social, paid media to that target audience. Running events, we've done a number of events here in London. Um, we've started a podcast. But I think what we really do is we try not to go down the really hard sales approach. It doesn't often work too well. It's like, hi, we're Charle, work with us. Normally, we try and take a softer approach in terms of creating great content, whether it's through our Charle Chats podcast, whether it's through writing up guides on Shopify, running events, dinners, and adding value to those merchants. And hopefully they can then learn a bit more about us and be excited to work with us. Um, any work that we do, it's super important to write up case studies all about it, even as a freelancer. If somebody's looking for a freelancer rather than an agency, and there's a lot of people that are, that's for sure. Then make sure that you've written up really detailed, beautiful case studies, really showcase your work well, and don't be too techie. Ecom teams tend to be less techie than dev teams, so they just want to know what you've done, how beautiful it looks, and what it and what the benefit to that business is. How does it improve conversion rate and so on? That's going to really help you sell. So these are some of the things that have worked really well for us, and slowly building a community of people that follow you. It's not an overnight thing. Unfortunately, there's no magic wand that's going to make people queue up at your door. But building all of these channels up over time, there's no secret sauce. It really is a long game and a consistent game.
Yeah, I would totally agree. And I think definitely great insights. Also, I like what you said in terms of like building the brand a little bit, having the podcast here, posting on LinkedIn, because yeah, people can get to know you. It's more relatable. The leads already warm up a bit. So even if you approach someone, then it's not even completely cold outreach in that sense. It's already like slightly warm, we could say maybe. So that
Absolutely.
takes off the edge a bit. Okay, so yeah, these are great strategies. So rather spread a little bit and try a bit of everything as opposed to having all eggs in one basket, is what I heard between the lines.
Definitely. Absolutely. Try and get yourself out there. Every channel you can talk to people, start talking to them.
Okay, got it. Yeah, that's awesome. And now this was a question actually coming from our bootcamp students. What do you recommend in terms of landing the first Shopify Plus client? Because when you're starting out, obviously you might be working with like smaller brands and then speaking of having a track record, that might be a bit difficult if you approach like the first enterprise brand in your network or something. You could also share the story how you got your very first one, if that helps. Yeah, whatever you prefer.
To be honest, it might be a little bit against the question, but I wouldn't chase a plus brand. That's what I wouldn't do. I would chase a brand that you're really excited about
Mhm.
because there's loads that you can do off plus, right? There's so much you can do pre-checkout, which is what we do for lots of our merchants in terms of some fun JavaScript to be able to change the way the products behave before you even get to the checkout. Now I know, there's the plus label that everybody gets super excited about. And like, I work with a Shopify Plus merchant. Honestly, once you've done a few, you won't be that excited anymore. I really wouldn't chase trying to win Shopify Plus merchants. For us, that was not a strategy. It was honestly business guy here trying to find merchants that could pay our fees to pay our bills. That was honestly our strategy. And that should be a strategy as a freelancer. You've got bills to pay, try and work with some brands that, are reputable, of course. And then I promise you, once you start working with loads of Shopify merchants, whatever you're doing to win those merchants is exactly the same approach to win the Shopify Plus merchants. Reaching out, the more brands you have in your case studies, there are loads of brands that are not on Plus that people know about. And then sometimes those sort of brands can springboard you into talking to bigger brands that just so happen to be on Plus as well. So, I really wouldn't chase the just trying to find Plus brands. I think it would happen naturally if you're doing a really great job. But listing yourselves on, Fiverr and other sort of tools that allow brands to find freelance resource. I'm pretty sure there's some Shopify Plus merchants who maybe haven't got an agency on board just yet. Might well be knocking on your door.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a great perspective. Maybe also in terms of like you said, okay, you use at one point you need like better brands or better clients in order to afford your fees. And I think that is also really important in terms of what you said earlier. You want to create the best results for your clients possible. And only if they can pay your time, basically, you are able to put in the time for them and then create these amazing results. So it's not even all about the money, and I think that's very important to drive home. It's about like, yeah, being able to deliver the results you promise, and obviously that costs some money, right?
Absolutely. At the end of the day, you win, let's say you win a project, let's say it's a small customization task or something, or building somebody a new product page that's got to build a functionality. Okay, they might not have thousands and thousands of pounds to spend with you.
Yeah.
But if you're new and you're just getting into the Shopify world and someone's willing to take a punt on you and you haven't got a massive case studies behind you, think of all the money you could make off the back of that and all the future work opportunities that you could come across if you've got that experience that not other people have. So, do consider the work that might have future revenue opportunity as well as what you can make initially.
Yes, love that. Okay, this is awesome. Okay, so we've been talking about strategy for landing clients, not chasing Shopify Plus brands because it will happen organically, more or less. Yeah, one more question I had on this is specialization versus full service. So, would you recommend specializing on something particular? For example, you could be the performance expert or the Shopify migrations expert or SEO expert or whatever. Or would you rather say, hey, whatever problem comes our way, we're gonna fix it and we're gonna be your yeah, basically go-to support.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think Shopify is quite niche in its own.
True.
It is still it's a niche on its own. See, it's not like you're a developer that could do every platform. So you do have to be careful not to go too niche. Otherwise, you might find yourself with not enough merchants knocking on your door. So
Mhm.
I think if I was a freelance developer and I was looking for a good workflow, what I would probably do is make sure I'm really good at you know the basics, building out landing pages, building out a theme, because you never know when that project's going to land on your door and they've already got their designs ready to go. Get the basics down. Migrations, SEO, even things like checkout functions, by all means, they could be other strings to your bow in terms of things that really differentiate you from other developers. But make sure you've got that foundational knowledge first in terms of being able to do most intermediate work. And then if there is one particular area that you're really interested in, chase it, see if there's a pipeline of work there. At the end of the day, you've got to make sure you can fill your time with work. So specialization is great because obviously it means that it's easiest to sell, but just make sure you can get in front of the right people.
Okay, got it. Yeah, obviously supply gotta meet demand there. You can't just follow your passion and then right, that makes sense. Um,
Absolutely.
okay, but is there also maybe a point where you would draw the line? Because let's say a client asks you about, hey, Nick, can you also run our paid ads channel? And maybe you've never touched YouTube ads or Google ads before, whatever. Would you even do that? Or would you just say, hey, we're like a technical agency and we only do that? Yeah, that would also be
Absolutely.
super. I mean, marketing is a super deep rabbit hole, but yeah, any thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. So as an agency, we do just that. We only have two sides to our business. We have our custom builds where we design, develop, and build brand new bespoke Shopify and Shopify Plus stores. And then we have what we call our memberships, which is like a monthly retainer that gives merchants access to designers, developers, and e-commerce strategists for on-site. If somebody asks us to run an SEO campaign, if somebody asks us to run their PPC, paid social, it's a straight no. At the end of the day, these are very different disciplines
Yeah.
outside of a skill set. And I think, you can become a little bit of a jack of all trades and a master of none, meaning, and actually you could end up start delivering a poorer service. So whilst it is important to not niche too finely, but also stick within your discipline of what you can really know that you can deliver on in a good service. You want to make sure that you're not testing too much on a paying client because they're going to soon start getting pretty upset with you when you can't deliver.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so Shopify is niche already. Stick with the technical side potentially in the beginning. But then you can still see what kind of area you like best, what kind of projects you like best, and then still decide whether you want to double down on those or still keep the broad approach.
Absolutely.
Okay, that is awesome. Now the next topic I would like to transition to would be talent and hiring. And we've already been talking about like your agency, but maybe for someone new, what are like the most common things merchants would ask you about? Is it like building a new section? Is it implementing a certain type of feature? You mentioned Shopify Functions is gaining popularity right now. Check out extensions. But yeah, from your perspective, what is the most in demand thing?
Yeah, definitely. So projects, I'd say, we get lots of project requests. So designing and building brand new stores from the ground up. They normally all loyalty schemes are super popular. Integrating a reviews platform that's kind of branded up to meet the UI of the brand.
Mhm.
Um, Upsells around the site, super important. So having like product recommendations on product pages, homepage, within the cart itself before you even get to checkout. Um, Other things that we see are things like gift with purchase. So adding a product once you've hit a certain threshold of spend.
Mhm.
Um, Landing page builds, of course, new product pages, new collection pages, improving navigation. Search and discovery is super important. So making sure like filtering on collection is really optimized and it has great options. Searches in real time and suggests other things. We're using a lot of Shopify search and discovery app right now, which is awesome. If
Nice.
not, we're using tools like Clayvu, Algolia, um, to name names. But right now, we're seeing loads of excitement around the checkout within our Plus merchant base. Myself and our head of development, we're actually just sat down this morning talking about around 10 task requests that sit around the checkout. So some merchants are wanting to add way more options for marketing opt-ins, upsells directly within the checkout itself. We've also had a request for like local delivery. So if you type in City of London, then another delivery option appears. So we're building out some of these really cool functions right now, which is super exciting. Lots to learn still, as quite a lot of these features are still in developer preview, but we're working pretty hard at it right now.
Okay, yeah, that's an awesome overview. So yeah, the things you mentioned earlier, they seem to be centered around increasing customer lifetime value, like or like average order value, even like upsells, loyalty programs, and so on and so forth. And then checkout is obviously a big one, which is now popping off. But I think that's also maybe due to your segment, like Shopify Plus merchants, because obviously they have access to the checkout extensibility features. Okay, but I think that's awesome. And maybe also for the viewers, like learning about checkout extensions could be helpful. If you can post about that, create content about that, that might even be a good way to attract your first Shopify Plus brand. Would you agree?
Absolutely. 100%. If you start talking about Shopify functions right now and you make sure that gets seen by some Plus brands, I think there's going to be a few that are interested.
Okay, that's awesome advice. Thanks so much. Okay, now we've been talking about the things you do at the agency, but how about hiring people? So if we're talking all these features you just mentioned, what are the skills someone would need to bring to work in your agency?
Yeah, definitely. Now, within our development team, it's our biggest team at the agency. We have
Mhm,
juniors who have zero Shopify experience, are just coming in and we'll train them up. We have
mhm,
midweight, we have seniors, and we have a head of dev. Now, when we're interviewing a developer, um, some of the things that we ask for, of course, we're going to expect a really good base, strong understanding of HTML, CSS, vanilla JavaScript. We want to know that you know the basics. We're seeing a big push within our industry now of really trying to use vanilla JavaScript and getting away from heavy libraries like jQuery and so on. Um, but what but we want to see our developers to know that because it means that their ears to the ground on what's going on within their profession. So dropping things like that into an interview is always a really great tick in the box. But similarly, we then look for that very Shopify specific knowledge.
mhm.
So we might ask a developer, say, tell us about Liquid. And they should a good Shopify dev would easily tell you what Liquid is because it's the fundamental building blocks of Shopify.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas if you go, not heard of that, it probably means you don't know too much about Shopify. But then similarly, we might ask you about CSS frameworks. So we build using Tailwind, for example. So having a good knowledge on the CSS framework that an agency uses is always going to be a tick in the box if you're a developer
Right.
asking within an interview. Going on from that is like actually just having a really good understanding of Shopify as a platform. So you might want to talk about the storefront API and, if you've used that before. Okay, maybe not as a junior, we might not expect that. But as a midway, we probably would actually. But
Mhm.
then moving on from that, we'd start asking within an interview about um, theme management, the fun of theme management, and not overwriting changes and so on, and experience with branching and merging within GitHub, for example,
Yeah.
and how GitHub might sync with Shopify, and whether you've got experience with the native GitHub integration that sits between Shopify and GitHub, for example. So these are some of the things that we might not ask somebody to have direct theme management experience within Shopify, but we'd love you to understand GitHub and how it works. But then also the future things, you might not understand everything about Shopify functions, but to go into an interview and go, I'm learning about Shopify functions right now. I know it's brand new. It shows you've got a lot of experience and you're really listening to what Shopify is saying. It's all online, it's all in their docs, and it's all on their change log. It's not that hard to find. So being really platform knowledgeable, so really having a good knowledge of the platform, I think is super important. But then pushing all that techie stuff aside, we're looking for really excitable, passionate, and driven individuals that really want to push the future of their profession and be the future leaders of our business and help other team members and be open to grow. That's something that's really exciting. But also, one final thing is the impact of creativity as well. It can be really easy as a developer to think that, well, I'm not a designer. But actually, when you're a developer, whether you like it or not, you're a designer because you're making decisions on the way that UI interacts with the customer. How does that CTA change when you hover over it? How does that navigation appear when you're clicking on it? All
Right.
these small interaction factors. If you can say that in an interview, you can definitely guarantee you're probably going to get a job at Charle.
Okay, that is awesome. So yeah, guys, you've heard the list. If you want to apply at Nick's agency, make sure to bring these skills.
Just giving away my secrets.
Yes, gotta invent a new interview now. No, I'm just joking. So okay, so yeah, so what I heard, basic web development skills for sure. They have to be pretty solid. And then Shopify platform expertise, that is something you're actively looking for. I'm assuming it just brings down the training time for someone to like be productive on your team. And then speaking of the
Absolutely.
team, yeah, obviously GitHub and so on and so forth for like collaboration. Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Um, Going down a bit deeper here, that's also one of the students' questions. If we invert these questions, what do you see have people been lacking in previous interviews? Like, what was the most common thing they didn't have?
It's a good question. I think we see a lot of people that just don't seem to have a good grasp of Shopify. We'll ask them about some of like, we might say, what's the new content management system on Shopify? And a lot of people don't know. The answer is Online Store 2.0 if you don't know. But having a good base understanding of the platform, you might understand how to write liquid and etc. But how you need to understand how the platform works for the merchant so that
Mm-hmm.
you can make good decisions when you're building. So actually, we see a lot of developers having a lack of experience of understanding the platform because, for example, yes, Shopify functions, you can create discounts, but how do you know when Shopify functions is a good option? Because you might be able to just create it using the dashboard under discount and you don't need any code at all. So
Yeah.
we see a lot of lack of knowledge there. We surprisingly we see quite a lot of lack of knowledge around theme management. Um, Another one we often see is compiling JavaScript with Webpack or similar. It's super important, but we see a lot of our future recruits not having experience within that.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely a big one. And generally, just understanding the future of Shopify. It's We have a saying in the UK, chalk and cheese. Um, the developers that are really living and breathing Shopify are so obvious compared to people that they have heard of Shopify, they know Liquid, that's it. Completely different to people that are like actively following all of Shopify's events, latest updates, and so on. They're probably the things that we see lacking the most.
Okay, yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so it's mostly the Shopify expertise and then being engaged maybe in the ecosystem, which obviously helps with all the new updates and everything. Okay, and then probably also having worked with a few clients yourself, potentially as a freelancer, definitely helps in order to understand the business side of things, as opposed to coming from college, knowing like basic web development and then applying in your agency, which yeah, might not be the right fit then.
I think it does depend on the
Okay.
role we're hiring. If we're hiring a junior, we might not need you to have worked at another agency. But what we might ask you to do is have you ever built your own Shopify store on a development theme, for example? Can we see it? If you want to get into Shopify, I'd have hoped you've at least built some sections yourself before, even if you've not worked commercially in development before.
Mhm.
If it's a midweight, for example, or a senior or even a lead, and of course we're looking for that experience that you're going to bring into the agency from previous roles
Okay.
and projects.
Okay, so Shopify platform expertise is a must, and then for a junior, the level is a bit lower than for like a senior, which obviously makes sense. I mean, not even mention worthy. Okay.
Definitely,
One
definitely.
last question I had here in terms of hiring is, do you also work with freelancers or only in-house teams at this point?
So to be honest, we only really work with our in-house team because we have a lot of processes internally that we have to follow, and it's quite hard to invest that into freelancers. We do occasionally have contract
Yeah.
roles, so we might take on an individual for 6 months to cover a busy patch, or if there's a unique skill that we don't normally work on but we need to bring in. But we don't tend not to work with freelancers on an agile basis, but we do occasionally have contract permanent positions.
Okay. Yeah, that's great to know. All right. Okay, then I think this have been all of my questions today. So quick recap, we've been covering like what it's like to being a Shopify Plus agency, what it even means to begin with, how to become one, the clients you've worked with, client acquisition strategy, and then obviously talent and hiring, like what people are looking for, what skills you are looking for specifically in your agency. And I think we've been covering great things, great insights. So I really appreciate you sharing all of that transparently and also really appreciate you taking the time. Is there anything you would like to say to the audience, like anything you want to promote or yeah, recommend to people? Just the time is yours.
Amazing. Thanks, Chan. Well, thank you so much for having me, and thanks everyone for listening in. I think I would say if you're, learning development right now, or you're a fresh developer, it's a super exciting space to be in right now. We've been running Charle for 5 years, and every year it just gets even more exciting. So, congratulations on choosing a really great career. We actually run a podcast too here at the agency called Charle Chats. Our podcast is a bit different. What we do is we bring our brands in and we sit them down on a sofa in our office in London, and we have a really good chat about all the things that they're thinking about. It's not super dev heavy, but it's that strategic side. So learning what brands want from an agency, what they're struggling with. So you can sit down and listen to some of the biggest brands in the UK right now. Feel free to visit www.charle.co.uk, click on podcasts, and you can see all of that on there.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, link is obviously also going to be in the description. So make sure to check out Nic's podcast. You can also follow him on LinkedIn for like more business insights and getting like a hang of the Shopify ecosystem. Also link in the description. And then yeah, Nic, thanks so much for joining the show. This was awesome and really appreciate your time. And then I wish you a productive day.
Thanks, Chan.